Hey, 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 and welcome back to Strange Minds 6. I'm your host, Ruby, and today we're going to be getting back into the Octunnumi by Trevor Allen Forrest. So, without further ado, please grab your drinks and snacks, or sit back, relax, hit that like button if you haven't already, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It would definitely help us out. Now, without further ado, the Octunnumi. Okay, so that's not weird. Hesitating before stepping through, Grace glances either side of the door that Reg is holding open. She can see that here, where she stands, is definitely the asylum. The stark lighting, the minimal to no furniture, the highly polished floor, and the smattering of residents slowly shuffling about their day. However, looking through the doorway at the busy street beyond, with its rushing people, noisy vans, buses, and cars, the bright sunshine blazes into the colorless hallway. That was definitely not the asylum. She was sure of this for several reasons. For a start, the asylum was in the middle of sprawling countryside. It was raining and cars were not allowed past the front parking area, and even if you could manage to gather all of the residents together and herd them backwards and forwards across the opening, they would still not add up to the number of people currently crisscrossing past, and certainly not that quickly. Another, and she was fairly sure of this given the sign on the door, was that this was a broom cupboard and not direct access to a street. But probably the biggest giveaway was that this broom cupboard in the asylum was on the third floor, not, as the street beyond suggested, ground level. About to question the anomaly, but not really knowing where to start, Grace is ushered through the door by Trad and Vivi, with Reg following closely behind. Slamming the door closed just as an aspiring escapee, making a break for the outside, crashes against the closed door. Close much? Trad laughs. How? Grace begins. Do we do that? Trad smiles as Vivi lowers herself onto his shoulders. Yes, and do we know where each door leads to? Yes, and can you do it? Exactly. So, Trad smiles at his brother. I win again. Vivi, win again, Vivi echoes. Well, strictly speaking, she didn't ask, Reg points out. Tomato, tomato, Trad says, holding out his hand. Vivi, pay up, Vivi says, hovering down to Trad's hand, producing a large sign from the drawer in her arm which says, pay up, and points it to Trad's open palm. Fine, Reg says, shaking his head and flicking Trad a coin. In a flash, the sign vanishes. Vivi grabs the coin from the air and giggles, zips into Trad's pocket. What? Grace inquires. What was all that about? The monkey is a thief. That's what, Reg mutters. Beep, I heard that, Phoebe shouts from her home. No. What has Trad won? Grace shakes her head. Oh, the doors, Reg replies. Every newbie asks the same questions without fail. And yet, you always say they won't, Trad adds as Phoebe returns coinless to his shoulder. So, I win again. And? Grace asks. I mean, I get the insomnids and stuff. She glances back. But how do you know where they are? Where they go, and can I do it? To be honest, an actual door, Reg replies as Phoebe produces a mini door by the way of example. Is totally unnecessary. He guides Grace to the entrance of a disused shop. Glancing at the redundant mini door in her hand, Phoebe slings it over her shoulder. The sound of a disgruntled "Oi!" bounces back as it hits a passing workwoman. But it's the best method, Reg continues. We've tried just appearing. Ta-da! Phoebe says, bobbing wide-eyed between them, adding jazz hands for good measures. But that tends to scare well, you know, he says, trying to swat Phoebe away, out of people. But coming through a door, not so much. So, all intimates have doors? She asks as Trad grabs Phoebe and plunks her back into his pocket. Not always, it depends, Trad says. Really, they are just openings, sort of tears in the fabric. The muffled sound of fabric tearing drifts up from his pocket, which he places the flat of his hand over the opening. Have always been there, but only known to a few. He smiles, but then, as the number of intimates grew, his pocket begins to expand as Phoebe pushes through his fingers. So did the discovery of the access points, followed by the desire for them to be disguised, Reg adds, glancing at Phoebe instantly donking dark glasses, hat, and trench coat. Initially, most were established around trees. Disguise abandoned. Phoebe zips around as Reg and Trad explain, offering examples along the way, currently peering out from the branches of a tree. Or hedges. Phoebe behind a hedge. And walls. Phoebe balancing across the top of a wall. And of course, with walls came doors, Grace adds, chuckling at Phoebe, who elegantly steps through the doorway that had just appeared in the wall. Pretty much, I mean, the inhabitants of each insomid decides how they will appear on their side, Reg adds. And that's just the first layer, Trad states as he sends out an energy bolt in an attempt to grab Phoebe, who ducks, flips, and smirks all at the same time. Layers? Yeah, think phyllo pastry. You know, layers, Reg says, holding out his hand, placing one over the other. Some areas touch, some don't. And you know these layers, she asks as Phoebe dons an apron and toque. Some, mostly the first layer. Yeah, Trad mutters, and they took long enough to learn. Phoebe is suddenly wrapped in an energy bolt, arms and legs tied, Mouth covered, Trad yanks her back to him, leaving her suspended in mid-air to skies, evaporating. But what do we do? Well, we have windows. At least there are windows, Reg says, as he taps the whitewashed window next to him. Here, he says, turning to face the street, for those occasions when a door would just be wrong. Placing the flat of his hand mid-air, pulling it away to reveal a small outline of a rectangular window in front of him. Then, flattening both hands at opposite corners and pulling it apart. Now, windows allow us to see into other instruments. Like so, he says as Grace stares open-mouthed at the scene beyond the frameless, unsupported view of open fields smack in the middle of a hectic street. Phoebe, still bound, stares up at Trad, her now elongated, super large eyelashes fluttering. And this? Grace asks, walking around this window into another instrument. Doesn't alarm anyone? Only in Fethris. But then, Trad adds, ignoring Phoebe's pleading, glistening blue eyes, they only see what we want them to see. And honestly, what they want to see too. Reg finishes. Windows, Grace chuckles. Just like on the computer, you know? Opening windows on different things like, she says, worlds. And the idea came from where do you think? Trad asks, relenting as a fat teardrop rolls ridiculously slowly down Phoebe's cheek. Just someone else trying to take a little bit of home with them, Reg comments, but ours comes with an added extra, he continues as he enlarges the window and steps through. Hey! Grace turns sharply as she, too, steps through the opening. Hey, who pulled my hair? She asks at the emptiness. Well, at least we know we are in the right place, Reg comments, as his hat is knocked from his head, sending Phoebe into belly rolls through the air as she falls about laughing. Oh, ha ha, very funny, he grumbles. Well, Trad mutters, stepping through and closing the window behind him. You certainly kept this destination quiet. Phoebe quickly retreats to the safety of Trad's pocket. I'm sorry, but are we or are we not supposed to be bringing in our ops? Reg asks. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of our ops, chosen Insomed, is, he gestures around. Still could have told me. Really? Could I, Trad? Could I? Hey! Grace reaches for her leg, rubbing her thigh. Someone's pinching me. Just stand still, Reg says, sighing as his hat slowly wobbles away from him. I really hate this place. Trad mutters, startled by a loud bang above him, followed by confetti streamers drifting down over his head and shoulders. Okay, you need to focus, Reg says, reaching for his hat, which after some effort, he manages to retrieve it from nothingness that was trying to steal it. Focus on an area, stare at it. Don't look at anything else, he says. We only need one to show itself. As Grace's coat is being tugged and Trad's hoodie thrown up on his now strewn head, Reg crouches and stares hard at a large rock in front of them, and stares, and "No fair, no fair," comes a small, grumpy voice. "Oh, no fair!" The little figure materializes on the rock, slumps down, clearly unhappy at his forced appearance, with his chin resting in his hands, his long pointy ears at right angles to his head. "You are no fun," he sulks as one by one several other imps appear around them. A clod of mud directed at Trad's head sails through the air, the imp responsible hurriedly retreating behind the others as he comes into being. In a blur of moment, Vivi laughs herself in front of the offending object, successfully managing to deflect most of the mud, but not all. Splattered by the fallout, Trad mutters, "I really hate this place." Wiping bits of mud from his face and pulling streamers from his head, he repeats, "I really hate this place." "Phoebe, sorry. Phoebe apologizes profusely while attempting to wipe the mud off. Grace says, still fixed unblinkingly on an empty rock. "It's not working." "It's okay. There's nothing there. They are all out." "Oh, thank goodness," she says, slumping, then catching sight of the foot-high figures. "Oh my word, they're so..." "Yeah, we know," Trad says. "Cute," she finishes. "Cute!" the three exclaim, although Vivi says, "Me." Looking again at the collection of slightly green, slightly overweight, slightly out of proportion imps, completely naked, were it not for low-slung sarongs and their exceptionally long beards designed, it would seem, to preserve their modesty should the sarongs fail in their duty. And then back at Grace. "Did she say cute?" a more wrinkly, grayer-haired one asks, holding his hand to his ear for a reply. Yes, she said cute," another replies. "Huh," the elderly imp says to Reg. "Is she all there?" tapping his temple as he spoke. "I'm beginning to wonder," Reg replies. "What?" Grace says in response to the stunned faces looking at her, including the imps themselves. "You don't think they're cute?" "Look," she says, scooping up the nearest imp, bringing him in close to her face on the palm of her hand. "Aren't you the little sweetie?" she says in her best baby talk. "Well, the little imp hesitates. Yes, you are. Yes, you are," she coos as she scratches lightly behind his ears. Despite himself, he enjoys immensely, struggling to stop his leg scratching at the air. How are these cute?" Reg asks, slightly bewildered by the concept. "Aw, look," she says, scooping another one, sitting down and placing them on her lap, stroking the new arrival. "Look at their cute ears and all their sticky up hair, And those big eyes, and the squidgy pot bellies, she continues, lightly tickling the shorter, stockier one of the two. Who knew imps came in so many shapes and sizes? I thought, from fairy tales, they were all the same. Like the Fethris people? An imp mutters. They're all the same. How are they all the same? Trad sneers. They are all different colors. For a start, we are not all blue. Oh, yes, different now, the elderly one concedes. Not so long ago that you wasn't all different. He pauses. And it's more teal. What is? Phoebe helpfully produces a color chart. Teal. It's a color, the imp confirms as Phoebe fans out the multicolored strips. I know what it is. You, however, are blue. Teal. Teal, which is not blue, the imp states, pointing to the chart. Whatever, Trad sighs, taking a swipe at Phoebe. We haven't got time for this. Don't stop on our account. Leave as soon as you like, the imp on Grace's knee murmurs. Smiling up at Grace, he says, Hugh, you can stay as long as you like. Oh, thanks, Trad mutters. Okay, fine. The imp to Grace's left grumpily demands, Why are you here? Yeah, what you want? Another equally crouchy imp joins in. We've come to get Ellery. Who the hell is Ellery? He chuckles, sharing the joke with his friends, who, not immediately realizing it was indeed a joke, take a while to join in. Yeah, we ain't got no L, whatever-ery, adds one of them from the back. I really hate this place, Trad grumbles, encasing the imp with the most to say into an energy bubble and lifting him drift up, producing a large pin from a drawer in her leg. Phoebe zips over to the floating imp. Okay, the imp screeches, watching the ground move further and further away. Phoebe coming closer, the bubble flexing as he pushes spread eagle in fear at the sides. She had to go. Called away. Said you'd be coming. Gave me a message. Silence follows. And? Reg asks. And what? The imp stammers, the tip of the pin glinting. The message. What's the message? Ask who? He gestures quickly back to Trad. Unimpressed by his current predicament, he adds, Bully boy, I really hate this place, Trad mutters again. See, she said, you'd know. In one movement, spinning on his heel, Trad bursts the bubble, sending the imp tumbling to the floor, and heads to the open meadow behind them. With Phoebe in hot pursuit, grabbing Grace, Reg follows, leaving a series of oofs in their wake as the falling imps land on their bellies of their friends, having thrown themselves under him to soften his fall. Chorus simultaneously, You're welcome, I'm sure. As the last of the imps promptly disappear, a clod of mud hits the back of Trad's head. I really hate this place. And that, my dear friends, is where this chapter ends. I truly hope that you enjoyed it. And I'm actually really surprised that now they're bringing out more characters. So we had the Bewitchers, we had some other little characters, um, and now an intimate of imps. That's actually kind of funny because I actually made a little gameplay on Elden Ring, and I usually use the imps, but yeah, it's kind of funny how different books or different things describe the imps and other creatures or witches differently. But enough rambling. If you can please like this video and subscribe if you haven't, I would greatly appreciate it. And with that being said, my dear friends, this is Ruby, signing off.